When running a business, knowing what to focus on is half the battle.
So in this episode, we're going to introduce the concept of a scorecard and show you how you can actually develop and use this to help you run your business.
Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Tired of putting in long hours doing what everyone says you should and still not making money? Sounds like you're ready for Lifestyle Builders. We'll help you get back on track, taking action, and seeing results. Head over to joinlifestylebuilders.com today to get started. All right, so running a business is so much easier when you kind of know where you're at.
Absolutely.
So hence the addition of a scorecard to kind of give you the general overview. Hey, how's my business doing? What do my numbers look like?
Well, that's really the key thing. And, what we find is most new entrepreneurs don't have something like this. And not even just new entrepreneurs. Like I work with a lot of, I would say, entrepreneurs that are scaling, entrepreneurs that are doing 6, sometimes 7 figures in annual revenue. And sometimes they don't even have this put together. And really what that's causing is a really inefficient business. And usually it's hiding a lot of issues and not letting the owner really know what's going on in their business so that they can run it better.
It would be like going to school and not getting report cards every quarter to know like, hey, how am I doing in this class?
Or if you're playing sports and you don't have that giant scoreboard up on the wall.
So you don't know how much time you have left or how many points you need to score.
Or who's winning or, simple things like that. But that's where, a lot of people, when I introduce this concept, like most people get so afraid of like the numbers and tracking and they get overwhelmed. And we always relate it back to sports because it's like, listen, when you go to a sporting event, like whether it's basketball or football or soccer, whatever your sport is, there's a scoreboard. And what are the common characteristics of a scoreboard?
They have the time left. They have the points. They have penalties.
And each one's a little bit different depending on the sport. But overall, they don't have a ton of data. They have key information so that at a quick glance, anyone can look at it and be like, oh, I know where things are at. Right?
Now, I am going to point out, I am one of those people who sometimes gets overwhelmed by numbers. And I think that, I think the problem a lot of entrepreneurs have is they aren't sure which numbers they should be looking at. And there are a lot of numbers involved. Like if you really dig down and look at the base level, there are numbers for everything that you do in your business. Number of followers, number of clicks, number of people filling out applications, number of website viewers. Like
I was going to see how many you could name since you said there was so many.
There are so many.
But yeah, I mean, there's literally thousands of numbers that you could track.
So they get overwhelmed because they aren't sure which ones they should be tracking. So then it's like most people dive in. They're like, I'm going to track them all.
And then they get overwhelmed.
And then overwhelm hits.
Yeah. And then one of two things happens. Either they try to track everything and it takes so much time that they're like,
why am I tracking all these things?
I'm not actually able to like do the work in my business, or, they're not sure how to use that information and it kind of falls off, or they track the wrong things. So really the reason for having this is that as you grow your business, like you've heard that common term, you want to work on your business, not in your business. And basically what a scorecard will allow you to do is to understand how the business is running without you having to be involved in every piece of it. So we did do a show really talking about kind of that shift, what is on your business versus in your business. And that
was a while back, show 33.
Woo! Yeah. So tomandariana.com/33 will get you to that show. But essentially, you want to remove yourself from the day-to-day operation and be able to run the business and have either tools or other people be able to run more of the day-to-day. And this scorecard will help you do that.
All right. So let's define what a scorecard is for everyone listening, just in case they haven't heard the term or they've heard it called by something else because it has a couple other names.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a scorecard, a scoreboard, a dashboard, probably other names out there.
I'm sure there's some others.
And there's always different variations, but the way I look at it is it's something that you can look at a quick glance and understand how your business is doing. It's just like if you're in a sporting event, you can look at the scoreboard at a quick glance and instantly know how much time's left. Are we winning or losing? If there's fouls, like how many fouls do we have?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, like who has the ball, right? So in business, it's basically something that will give you a very quick glance at the health of your business. And what you really want to do is to expose problems, because as your business grows, there's going to be all these different areas. And when you're planning on like what to do next, one, knowing of problems early helps you take care of problems before they become big problems. But then two, it really helps you direct your next set of actions based on what's going on and where you need to focus.
Yeah, it's like, think of all the things out there that have a dashboard with red light, green light indicators. Like in our book, we talk about the dashboard being in a car. The business is the car. So when you're driving, you have a little light that turns on when you're almost out of gas. You have a little notification or a light that says, hey, your tire pressure is low. Maybe don't keep driving because you might pop a tire. Like all of these things that come up as little indicators that there is a problem or an issue somewhere that then allow you to go take care of that problem or issue instead of waiting for that bad thing to happen. Like how much of a pain would it be if you ran out of gas? Then you've got all these other steps you have to take. Whereas if that indicator comes on and you're like, oh, I need to go fill up with gas, that's one step. You just stop at the gas station and fill it up. So that's kind of how you want to use your dashboard in your business is, here, all these little indicators, that's telling me my next step to take, which is a usually much easier step than if you're waiting for the problems to happen. And those are big deals.
Yeah, I mean, like you brought up a great point. It's about being proactive instead of reactive. So like I remember I don't know if we're too old or whatever at this point, but I remember when cars didn't used to have the like low light or the low gas indicator. And so you had
to watch the arm on the gas tank.
So you could see if it was going down, but sometimes if it didn't stand out to you, like you'd run out of gas and you're like, oh, I was on E, but I didn't realize it. So what's cool now is that they have a very simple light. When that light comes on, you're like, oh, I know I have 40 miles left. I should go fill up. And you mentioned the red, green light like indicators. A lot of times when I build scorecards or help companies do that, we make it super simple. So it's like, hey, if something's good, like green. If you don't have to worry about it, it's green. If it's like on the edge or maybe it's like not quite there, it's yellow. And if it's bad and it's like, you better look at this, it's red. So now when you look at it, it's super simple to say what is red or what's yellow. And then those are things I probably have to focus or dive deeper into.
Yes.
Now, before we talk about actually building this out, we had another episode. It was called The 4 Components of Your Business Engine. It was show 106. And really what we did was sometimes it can be overwhelming in business to kind of manage everything. So what we always talk about with businesses, and this applies to every business, is 4 main components. There's marketing, which is attracting potential buyers. There's sales, which is converting those people into customers. There's operations, which is delivering whatever your business offers. And then there's finance, making sure you collect the money and then disperse it to the right areas. So when we talk about this scorecard, we're going to be talking in terms of those 4 specific areas and helping you to figure out what are the couple numbers you should track.
Mm-hmm. Now, in our case, normally we go for the simplest creation of anything in your business. So we're not going to suggest you go sign up for tools or create this cool fancy thing. We create all of our scorecards or dashboards basically in Excel to start.
In spreadsheets.
Yep.
Well, I don't use Excel anymore. I use Google Sheets.
Sorry, specifically Google Sheets.
But yeah, I mean, and a lot of people, like one of the first complaints I get is, well, Tom, I've heard of this fancy website or this fancy tool. And it's like, listen, later on, you can automate some of that. What we're trying to do first here is just make sure we capture the right data and understand where we're getting it from.
Yep. And part of that is knowing enough about your own business to be putting that data in your scorecard and then going and finding that data and updating it, because it's very easy to just sign up for a tool and let the tool do the work, but you're missing out on, is the tool pulling the right data?
Yep.
And do you even know what's happening in your business, because you're forcing yourself to go to whatever part of it and grab that data to put it in.
Yep. And in order to automate it, you have to know where it's coming from. So let's dive into that. First thing that I always like to have on scorecards is your goals, because you're setting 90-day goals. And if you're not, we have an episode that you should be checking out.
You're just all sorts of episodes today.
Well, we've covered a lot in our 100+ episodes that we've had so far. So we did an episode specifically on how we recommend setting 90-day goals. So you can check that out at tomandariana.com/103. But essentially, we want you setting 3 to 5 main 90-day goals. And for each goal, you should basically be able to say, you're going to go from X, which is what you're currently at today, to Y, which is where you want it to be, by Z, the date.
Mm-hmm.
So if you set 90-day goals, you know the time frame, the Z is 90 days from now. And let's say you want to increase your sales from 2 a week to 4 a week. Well, now you know you're going to go from 2 to 4. So your target each week is 4 sales.
Mm-hmm.
And then on your dashboard, each week you just track how many sales you actually had.
Yep.
So now you can easily say, are we on track, ahead, or behind for our goals? And then based on that, color code it and then decide, do we got to change something for the upcoming week?
Now, one of the things that we talk about in the book, and anytime we talk about metrics, is leading versus lagging indicators. So a lagging indicator is something that you don't know if you've hit the lagging metric until it's actually happened. So the example that Tom gave of talking about 4 sales a week, you don't know if you've hit 4 sales a week until those 4 sales have happened. So one of the things that Tom always adds to a scorecard is a leading indicator that's then going to help you reach your lagging metric, leading metric lag. There's lots of words. I apologize for all of them. I will try to keep them straight. But so what you want to do is make sure that whatever lagging metric you're setting, maybe it's those 4 sales a week, that you're adding a leading metric before that. That's kind of helping you figure out how close you are to reaching that goal. So in the case of, okay, I want 4 sales a week, that means you maybe have to have 8 sales calls in order to hit the 4 sales. So that's something that you can measure before those sales have happened. You can say, oh, I've got 10 sales calls on my calendar. Potentially 2 of those may drop out during the week or have to reschedule. So that means I know I'm going to at least have those 7 or 8 sales calls. That should mean I'm going to hit my goal of 4 sales for the week. If you don't hit the goal, then you've got some things to dive into and to look at as to why not. But that leading metric on your scorecard is helping you get an overview on that goal of the 4 sales before they have happened.
Yeah, and to your point, it helps you figure out, okay, well, if I want to get 4 sales, what action can I take in the upcoming week to make sure I get those?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it also helps you connect the 4 different components, because obviously sales is one component. What connects that is the marketing. So obviously you're having to do certain actions within your marketing to have those actions happen in your sales component, and so on and so forth.
Yep. So if you're picturing this, at the top of your scorecard, there's your 3 to 5 business goals. And then across the right-hand side or across the top is each week. And each week you should have a target. I want to make 4 sales. And then you should have the actual how many I actually made. So now very quickly at a glance, you can say, week by week, are you on track or off track with the sales you're trying to make?
Mm-hmm.
Now, to your point, diving in deeper, then we want to look at the overall health of the business from the 4 major aspects. So first off is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And marketing, the whole point is we want to attract potential ideal clients into our world. So what you want to look at when you're looking at marketing metrics are, what constitutes a lead in your world. And a lead is usually somebody that is potentially interested, but isn't really qualified yet, right? So they might be aware of you. Like, so if this is your website,
Mm-hmm.
it might be number of website visitors.
It's your email list, it's number of emails opened or number of new subscribers.
Yeah, number of new subscribers. If you have a physical store, it might be number of customers that have entered your store.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically people taking that first step on the journey or in your sales funnel. Then what you're looking at is turning leads into prospects. There's some event that makes you see that they might be interested and they now might potentially purchase.
Like they may have clicked a link that you had on your website or in the email.
Yep. Or they might have visited a certain page, right? So somebody goes to your main website, they might be a lead. Somebody clicks on your sales page, they might be now a prospect.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're looking for is that event that takes all the people that are potentially interested and starts to filter out the ones that are more likely to make a sale. So in your business, start thinking about what is the first event that people do when they come and find you, and then what is the trigger or the indicator that shows that, hey, this is somebody that might make a sale that we want to spend a little more time with.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now we're going to talk about the other two components a little bit, which you normally don't hear about these because they're less interesting than marketing and sales in a lot of people's eyes, but the operations and the finance.
So before we get there, let's just revisit sales to make sure everyone has it.
Okay.
Because marketing is making sure that we've got people that are ready to buy. Sales are going to be, okay, the activities or the actions that actually turn the interested people into customers, right? So for example, if you've got a program online, somebody might have to fill out a application.
Yeah.
Tenants, before they can rent one of our properties, will fill out a tenant application. They might have to book a call with you. They might have to, you might send them a proposal. So there's usually some action right before you end up making a purchase. So depending on what your business is, you want to identify what that action is. And then ultimately, you want to turn those prospects into customers because they made a sale. So then you can track how many actual customers you were able to make or how many sales you were able to make that week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to cover your first two components, attracting people and then converting them into customers.
Yes. All right. Now, operations is how you're delivering on the product that you just sold or the service that you just sold.
Yep. So first thing you want to look at here is how happy your customers are or how satisfied they are. Because essentially what they're doing when they're giving you money is they're saying, I believe that your product or service will help me solve this problem. And then they're gauging that by whether it did help them solve the problem or not. So what you want is to be able to identify and measure how happy customers or how satisfied they are. There's a couple common ones that will come up. One is something called a net promoter score. So if you've ever had a website or a company ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this to a friend? What they're doing is testing your net promoter score. So typically you want like people to say 9 or 10, and that means they're satisfied. What you can also do is, check in with your customers and see, did they have success? Or another thing you can look at is, how many asked for a refund or how many people left your service if you have something that's like monthly recurring.
Yep. Or how many people progressed through your course if you're selling a digital course online.
Correct. How many people ultimately got to the end of that, right? So by tracking this, what you can tell is how happy or satisfied are people and ultimately how many are getting the result. Because we want to move them through so that they're satisfied customers. And then ultimately not just getting the result, but so happy that they're giving you a testimonial, leaving you a positive review, telling friends that they should come and do this, and hopefully coming back and buying again, right? So you might even be tracking repeat customers, how many customers are coming back.
Yeah, and you'll hear this talked about a lot in the online space as well as what is your retention rate and your churn rate for customers. So happy customers tend to have a higher retention rate and coming back to buy your services or to buy more products. A high churn rate means people are kind of coming in and then peacing out.
Yeah, and actually to that point, something I see with a lot of businesses is so many businesses are focused on
getting
sales and marketing, and I forget the exact stat, but it's like 7 times more expensive to get a new customer in than it is to keep an existing customer. Unfortunately, what I find is a lot of people, once they've sold a customer, almost forget about them or don't give them the same service because they already have the money. Like I can just think about like a cable company. They do this all the time. They give deals and they give all these promos and they do everything to try to get you to become a customer. And then once you are a customer, you get terrible service. Like new customers get really good deals. Your price goes up. New customers, they'll bend over backwards for you. You're an existing customer and they're like, well, we'll send a rep out. They'll be there anytime between the 1st and the 30th of the month. And you got to be home all day. So that's a great example of where they end up spending a lot of money to acquire a customer and then end up losing a lot of them because they provide very poor service. So oftentimes you can actually make a much more profitable company just by actually providing really good service to your customers.
And giving them different ways to stay with you as a customer. All right, now on to a lot of people's least favorite component, but it's a very important one, and that is the finance component of your business.
So we're going to make this easy for you guys. So you've heard us talk about profit first. We actually recorded an episode.
We had multiple episodes. We talked to Mike Michalowicz as well.
Yeah, and I think, what was it? Episode 98, I think, where we talked about profit first. But from the finance perspective, you really want to look at two things. You want to look at, is your money being collected, right? So you want to look at, how much of the sales that you've made have you actually collected in money? You want to make sure that that's a good amount, right? I'm not going to get too technical into the financial terms, but basically once you make a sale, you might not get all the money right away if there's a payment plan or something like that. So you want to make sure that once you make the sale, you're collecting as much of that money as you can. But then two, you want to make sure that that money is going into the right buckets. And so the reason we have profit first in this category is because if you use the basic profit first buckets and you're tracking where the money's going, now you can tell, are we spending too much in operating expenses, which means it's coming from somewhere else, like the ability to pay ourselves.
Yep.
So what we usually have people do here is track those two things, right? Are we collecting all the money that we should be? And then are we distributing it or spending it in the right categories?
Yep.
So you're not a numbers person. That makes sense to you? Any questions about that?
Nope. That makes sense to me. I think the main numbers that a lot of people are looking at is, income versus expenses. So a lot of times you'll have some of those numbers on your dashboard as well to make sure that your expenses are not going too high and that your profits are not too low.
Yep. And that's why using profit first is really good because it covers income and expenses, but then it also covers the other things people forget about, paying yourself, profit, and taxes.
Yep.
So by looking at just those couple of numbers, and you're doing this already if you're following along with what we recommend, because every 2 weeks you're moving money according to profit first anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that's kind of a main number that most people have on a dashboard anyways. Like the point of business is to make revenue. So that number is going to be on there, but are you including some of those other numbers as well? Because revenue is a lagging metric. You need some of those leading metrics too.
And you are hanging out with me way too much.
Hanging out with you a lot.
All right. So, and obviously this is just a quick overview, but those are some ideas for what to create or what to put on your scorecard. At the end of the day, you want anywhere from, let's say, 8 to 15 numbers. If you have less than that, you probably don't have a good enough insight into your business. And if you have more than that, you probably are going to get overwhelmed. It's going to be more time to track, and you're going to get lost onto what you should really focus on. But now, if you create the scorecard, but you don't actually use it, you're not going to get the benefit.
Pointless. Yep. You've just wasted your time.
And so what we want to talk about now is how do you actually use this thing and what's the value you're going to get from it?
Yeah. And we use our weekly weekly, I say weekly. We use our scorecard and / dashboard weekly because we like to kind of have that weekly sync up. Since there's two of us, we like to have a view of, hey, what's going on? What's happening in your world over there? What's happening in my world over here? Let's make sure that all of our numbers look like they're supposed to, so that as we set our goals for the next week, for the next 90 days, we are aware of what is currently happening.
Yeah, and so we actually did a show that talks all about all of our different meetings and planning sessions that we recommend. So you guys can check that out at tomandariana.com/47.
You're going for a record of how many episodes you're referencing today.
Well, we have a lot of good episodes. I mean, what can I say? But you talked about the weekly meeting, and that's one of the core meetings we always talk about. And using the scorecard weekly helps you to understand how things are going and not let surprises come up. Because I remember back before we used to use scorecards, we would run into so many issues.
Lots of surprises.
And usually by the time we ran into them, they were much bigger and caused major issues.
Or it was too late to do anything to fix them.
Yeah, like I know one early on that we ran into time and time again was not tracking like our budget. And so what we would end up doing is we'd end up spending a lot more money than we thought. And then bills would become due or tax bills would become due. And because we hadn't put money aside for it, we had to personally put all this extra money into the business to cover things.
Yeah, he's talking about the wine and liquor store for any of you that didn't catch that reference, but for all the businesses. I was going to say,
we've had this issue, I think, in just about every one of our businesses, and because it's so easy just to get so focused on like running the business and not like sticking your head up and being smart about it.
Yeah, that one, I think for sure, the wine and liquor store is the one that we had the most struggle with when we weren't tracking our metrics correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, you must not have seen all the other businesses because everyone has caused us issues.
No, I know they've all caused us issues. That one is probably front of mind for me because I manage that one.
I think you're more involved in that one. Absolutely. But yeah, to that point, we've had issues in the past where our profit margins weren't, big enough and we didn't realize it right away. Or we had a drop in the number of customers and we maybe didn't see it because we weren't looking. Or we ran some marketing campaigns, but we weren't tracking like how many new leads were coming in.
We didn't know
if they were effective or not. Yep. Right. So there's all these examples of it's almost like you're flying blind if you're not having some of these key indicators. So what we want you guys to do, once you create this, all you're doing is in a weekly meeting, before the meeting starts, you're filling these numbers in. And then during the meeting, you're just reviewing and basically saying, are there numbers that are off, right? Are there numbers that are red? And then part of your meeting is saying, why are they red? And then now that we're aware of it, because we're looking every week, what do we do in the upcoming week to try to resolve that issue? And by doing this every single week, you're much more aware of what's going on in your business. Especially if you have team members, this makes it so much easier to delegate because you don't have to be involved in the day-to-day operations. You're just looking at the scorecard. And when you see an issue, now you can go to that team member or now you can go to that department and say, hey, notice this was off. What's going on? How can I support? What do we got to do to resolve this?
And I think in the point we are right now, marketing is a really big word in business, and everyone's talking about how you have to be marketing, how you should be doing marketing. The biggest thing I've seen is when you're not tracking your metrics when you're running those marketing campaigns. You'll say, well, how come you're on such and such a platform? And, the answer is, oh, well, so-and-so said I needed to be on there. Well, are you tracking? Like, are you getting customers from there? Well, I don't know. And it's like, well, if you don't know that, you could be wasting your time doing marketing campaigns on a platform where your customers are not. So knowing this, like setting this down in writing or, in a spreadsheet is how you're giving yourself those indicators. Like, okay, I'm going to try something new. I think this is going to happen when I try that new thing. I'm going to jump onto the Instagram train. Okay. Give yourself a goal on Instagram. I want so many people to click through from Instagram to my website. Now, when you're tracking those metrics, you're spending, maybe you're on Instagram for a month, and at the end of the month, you're really not getting a lot of people clicking through to your website. Well, is it worth your time and energy, or your team's time and energy, or your money, if you're spending money on it, to put your content on that platform if your customers are not there or they're not engaging with you? If they're not, then I'm going to scrap Instagram and I'm going to stick to Facebook and I'm going to try maybe something else.
Yeah. Well, and actually I had a really good example from a coaching client this morning. So this is a business that is almost at $1 million. And what they were doing was trying to figure out their paid marketing strategy. And what their marketing guy was saying was like, hey guys, we're getting a really low cost per lead. So they're saying they can get leads, that first step of marketing, in really low. But then I went over to the sales department and I said, head of sales, I said, tell me how many of these leads are closing, and none of them are closing. So what was happening was when they were just looking at the marketing side,
it was really good.
This is really good. We're spending this much money and we're getting leads in for like a couple dollars. That looks really good. But if they're not ultimately closing into customers, it doesn't matter. So this is why having the scorecard, looking at all of the components, is so important, because once you have that laid out, then you can ultimately say, this is the bottleneck in my business, and this is where I got to make the improvement. So we'll dive into more of this in a future episode. But if you guys are struggling with this. If you're like, I wish I had something like that to run my business, I want to invite you guys to jump on a call with me, because we'll go through some of these things and I'll show you how putting this scorecard in place, can ultimately help you drive your business forward, make smarter decisions, and to be honest, remove a lot of the anxiety that you probably have with your business today. So you guys can grab a call with me at tomandariana.com/apply.
And apparently this conversation we're having is riveting because both of our animals decided that they were going to come and join us.
Yeah, guys, can I get in on the scorecard conversation?
Oh, goodness. Animals. All right. So what's your action for everyone listening today?
Yep. So I want you guys to imagine that you're going to take a vacation for a month.
Ooh.
You're stepping away from business, and the only thing you have access to understand how your business is doing is this scorecard. You can't talk to your team. You can't log in and look at anything. You've just got to look at the scorecard and know how your business is doing. So I want you guys to think about what information would you need to know if the business is going well, not going well, or if there's fires you got to put out. This will be the starting point for your scorecard and helping you figure out what are some of those key informations for your business that you need to look at.
I like that one. That is a good action. Go on a vacation for a month. All right. And my action is to just hear from you guys. What metrics are you currently tracking in your business at this moment? What are the numbers that you're looking at? What are the decisions you're making based on those numbers?
And where do you want them to put them?
I would love for you to comment on this episode. The show notes page is tomandariana.com/112, or post it up on our Facebook page, Tom and Ariana.
Sweet.
All right. It's been another great episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and lifestyle builders.
As always, I want you guys to remember that it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you know another entrepreneur who may benefit from hearing this show, we would so appreciate you being a good friend and sharing it with them. Are you dreaming of a life of financial freedom and more time to spend with your loved ones? Want to build your business to support that dream? You need Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. Become a lifestyle builder at joinlifestylebuilders.com. Are you a Lifestyle Builders podcast fan? We'd love to hear from you. Head on over to tomandariana.com/iTunes and leave us a review.